Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Filipski, if you can lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Councilmember Barbara Bukowski. Here. Councilmember Anthony Filipski. Here. Councilmember Michael Jazinski.
Here.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski.
Present.
Councilmember Vernon Thompson.
Here.
Supervisor Brian Nowak.
Present. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the February 11th Town Board Work Session. Now that we have that out of the way, our next order of business on the agenda this evening is a resolution item. Madam Clerk.
We have resolution 2025-93 sponsored by Supervisor Nowak, seconded by Councilmember Filipski. The following vouchers and warrants submitted to the town of Cheektowaga prior to February 11th, 2025 are hereby approved and made part hereof.
Right, on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Our next order of business is new business, and on that we have one item this evening. I'd like to inform the board that we have, in addition to the new business relative to the pickleball courts, we do have Enterprise Fleet Management with us. So if there's a need for us to go to continue with other new business, I'd like for us to go right to Enterprise, get them out of the way, and we can deal with any other new business prior to the resolution item. So I don't know who the spokesperson is for dealing with pickleball courts, but the floor is yours if you'd like to approach.
Where do you want me to stand?
If you could stay right at the podium here. If you can pull the microphone down, green light when you see that on.
Okay.
The public here and at home will be able to hear you.
Well, you should be in receipt of a letter we sent you from John Brown, who's
I'm sorry, we are. Good evening. Can you just give us a first and last name for each of you?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I'm Marlene Dubsinski.
Okay.
Okay. And I played at the Cheektowaga Town courts last September when they opened. And this is George Urquhart, and he runs the senior pickleball program over in Lancaster at the senior center.
Okay.
And he's volunteered his services for many years doing this. So he's pretty much a pickleball ambassador also. So the first thing we noticed when we played last September, they were brand spanking new. A passerby had told me that we were the first to use the courts. Well, the first thing we noticed that the orientation was wrong. The courts are running east and west instead of north and south. And that presents a lot of problems with the sun. The sun is blinding. And John's concern in his letter, he expressed the liability factor. Me as a recreational player, I hate to lose a point because I couldn't see the ball. Okay. And George can probably tell you more why that is so important than what I can. Do you want to add anything, George?
Well, the most difficult times are in the morning and afternoon when you're facing the sun. And in Lancaster, we have two courts that were also built the wrong way, east-west. But that was due to the fact that they were told, well, we're not going to give you a fence around it. And they go, well, gee, we can't have the balls going into the parking lot. So they turned them, did them east-west, and then they gave them a fence anyway. So now we're still in the process. Hopefully this year or next year, we're going to be turning them. We've added 3 additional courts since, and they're all facing north-south next to it. And then the long-term plan is to add lights, but we can't do that until we have them all facing the correct direction. And when we're running, we run 2 ladder leagues now. The Recreation Department of Lancaster is doing 2. And that's the issue at night when we're, in the evening facing the sun. The higher level players, you cannot play facing the sun. somebody's gonna smash the ball at you and you're losing it in the sun, and that's where the risk. I won't play pickleball without protecting my eyes with eye protection. But a lot of people, if they're wearing sunglasses, okay, some people just refuse. That's not their thing. They watch the pros on TV, and nobody's wearing it except the one 16-year-old girl or 18-year-old girl. I'm not gonna wear it. But then, so that's the progress. So that's the concern then. One person in recent years did suffer a severe eye injury, the retina detached, from somebody, smashing the ball. And, if it just hits just right, I mean, that's, the risk that, we just want to prevent. So.
Sorry, George, can you pull the microphone up? Thank you.
So that's the biggest concern is safety and for the enjoyment of the people playing. You don't want to, be looking in the sun. I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into, putting baseball diamonds in, softball diamonds in, and it's the same way with tennis courts and pickleball courts, north, south, is the way for them to make it the safest and most enjoyable, for the people. And what John also added in his letter, saying the size of
the court, yeah,
the
I saw
courts
that.
area that you have, you have room for 8 courts, not just 6 courts, so you could maximize the usage of that also.
Right,
And
I
if
saw
you
that.
didn't want to do that now, at least plan for it at some point in the future where you wouldn't have to rearrange the whole courts a second time.
Yeah. And
when we left last September, when we left the courts, our thing was we said we would not be back because of that problem. And there was also a pitch problem. On the 3 courts, we were using 4 courts. We had, I think, 18 people there that Saturday morning. And when you're playing on those first 3 courts, when you enter the door, you look up and you see a slope like this. So the other 3 courts are up higher and are on a slant. I also kind of see that as a problem, but I'm really not sure. Does anyone? I do have a couple extra letters if somebody wants a copy. Huh?
Yeah,
I'll
Get the gist
Oh,
of it,
you
yeah.
did? Okay.
yeah, with the letter that was sent to town board members and the
Okay.
email correspondence, it was noted that we have the space on the existing courts to do that 90-degree turn and to go north and south with these. So I spoke with the director of our Parks and Facilities Department by email about this issue and mentioned it to him and say, take a look into the budget and to the resources that you have, and let's have a discussion internally about what we can do to make some adjustments here, hopefully this year. And if not in 2025, what we could do going forward.
Was that John Sichelski?
The director of our Facilities and Parks Departments now is Mark Mez. So John Sichelski deals with Lawson Park now.
Okay.
So that the go-to at the top of the pyramid over there in terms of the parks is going to be Mark Mez. And
Mark, what's his last name?
Mez, M-E-Z.
Okay.
So in the
Okay.
course of making these adjustments and dealing with these things, you may hear from him
Okay.
about what the plans are. But first stage is for us to work internally to see what we have in the budget, see what we have planned as far as work for the summer and all that, and what we can do to work something like this in.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to mention, I did talk to, last year I talked to Bob Croy, who was the recreation head over for Lancaster, and he told me they make a lot of money on the ladder leagues, the weekly ladder league that plays there. And if you have 8 courts, you can make a lot of money on tournaments. So John asked me to mention that fact. Another option, but I don't think it's a good option, you can put a canopy over it, a big roof, and you probably won't get the players who enjoy the sun to play, but on a rainy day, those courts would be filled. And that's pretty much what I had to say. George, can you think of anything to add?
With that, I'll open up to if there's any council member comments, if there's any questions to clarify what we're trying to do here.
I probably should tell you too, we did talk to, John Sichelski,
Okay,
but I thought at the time perhaps he was handling Cheektowaga.
there was a recent personnel change. He's
Okay.
still with town, but at the
Okay.
time, yeah, he was in
So
charge of
we,
the person.
we were talking to him and he thought it would be too expensive, but now's the time to do it because the final coating isn't done and the final lines aren't on. I mean, they put on some temporary lines so
Mhm.
you can start playing. I don't imagine you can play on fresh blacktop, and it was still soft even when we were playing last September.
Right.
It was kind of, spongy.
That was newly done.
But if you're going to do it, it would be less expensive, a whole lot less expensive to fix it now.
Anything else from council members before we close out here?
Quick question, if you say we put a canopy over it, do you still need the courts turned then?
No, not if you're going to put a canopy over it.
Okay, so
but
it's strictly because of the sun. Okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
yeah. I was kind of making a joke at that,
Also,
but
there is a problem though with the pitch. I noticed that when I was there.
Okay.
The way their courts are, if you play against the fence, you feel like you're at the bottom of.
Yes, would you like to approach to explain to them? Thank you.
I always feel like I'm at the bottom of the hill. so-
sorry.
If you could just give,
My name's Cheryl Barnese.
okay, hello.
But when I played against the fence, I felt like I was in a hole or at the bottom of a hill. And we noticed a difference because you played on both sides of the court. And I noticed that you felt like you were downhill. So when you're serving uphill, and then the people that are uphill, their ball's going further because they're hitting downhill. That was a big thing that I noticed as well. So if you did turn them the other way, the pitch is coming from the middle of the court like this right now. So if you turn the nets this way, then you wouldn't have that problem either.
Okay.
Okay. And as far as the
Okay.
canopy goes, we're pickleball people. We love to play. So the only time you really can't play is in the rain because it's too slippery. So if there was a cover over courts, that would be ideal. Except a dream.
right, well,
With
thank-
direct lighting and that.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I know, it's funny, because in Bradenton, Florida, where my father-in-law is, we go down there, they just had used tennis courts, and then they put in $3 million, and they decided to do 2 big canopies and, to make it world-class, I guess, competing with, Marco Island and Naples and that down there. But that's we all pie in the sky. We all dream about that. But we love playing out in the sun, so that's no problem. It's just getting it the right direction, and we're good.
Noted. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Just one more little comment. Summer of 2023, we played at Stiegelmeyer Park because of the tennis lessons that were taking place at Como Park. And we actually played there a few summers because of the tennis lessons. Those courts at Stiegelmeyer Park are in very bad shape, at least 3 of them. And the cracks are so big. Somebody got their sneaker caught in one and almost went flying, but somebody else caught her. And they're so bad that weeds are growing out of the baselines and the sidelines. And Mr. Sichelski did let me chalk those courts that year so that we could play pickleball on them. And that took me a lot of time, believe me, and I was doing it often. But I noticed other people were coming and playing on those courts. We're playing pickleball on those courts at Stiegelmeyer Park because I was chalking them. So at some point in the future, that would probably be a great park to update. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. With that, we're going to move on to the presentation from Enterprise Fleet Management. All right. The floor is yours. If you could please speak directly into the microphone. Green means it's on. And the town clerk has a presentation that she's going to get up on the screens in just a moment. But if you wanted to start by introducing yourselves and
Sure.
give us a quick overview in the meantime, the floor is
Yep.
yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fran Infernato. I'm a client strategy manager with Enterprise Fleet Management. We're here today to talk to you about your overall fleet and how we can help you reduce overall cost of ownership, help you create a manageable budget, and reduce just your overall age of your fleet. I have with me today also Nate Mers, our Director of Fleet Management. Want to quickly introduce yourself? Okay. He's here with me too to help answer questions. But thank you so much for your time. Should I say like next, or how should I?
Whenever you're ready,
Okay.
ready to move along.
Perfect. So really, in terms of an agenda, we're going to just talk about really a quick overview of what we do for our clients, how we can help the town, who we work with. We've prepared today a fleet profile for the town overall, in addition to an analysis and replacement schedule. And then we'll talk about our open-end leasing model, and then we'll talk about really just next steps and open up to questions. So in terms of what we do, again, we help our clients really from cradle to grave with regards to your fleet. So we help our clients with acquisition. We have different funding options we offer our clients. We can help with maintenance, fuel card program. Again, really capturing data on your fleet overall. So we're continuing to make the recommendations to drive down overall cost of ownership. And then we help our clients at the end capture on that resale market. In terms of who we work with today, these are just a handful of our clients. Let me go to the next slide. So we partner with County of Allegheny, County of Cattaraugus, Erie County, Madison County. Again, these are just a few clients that we manage today with regards to overall fleet management services. I know this is a little bit small on the screen. I think all of you hopefully have this in front of you, but essentially what this is showing is the town's overall fleet profile. And what this is capturing is the town's overall light and medium duty fleet. So it's not including any of the police fleet. So today the town has 130 total vehicles in your fleet. And really your fleet overall, when we break it down, it's made up of about 25 different vehicle types, which for a town of 130 vehicles, that is, quite a few different vehicle types. So again, one of the things that we can do is help the town really consolidate that. I would say more or less the average is about 8 to 9 different vehicle types. Your average age of your fleet today is 12.7 years, where 89 of those vehicles are over 10 years old. So the town does have, a challenge overall with regards to the age of your fleet. On average, your average odometer that you're driving per year is about 4,800 miles. So again, when we're just looking at your overall fleet, that is what the profile looks like. Moving to the upper right hand, you can stay on that slide for a second, I'm so sorry. Into the upper right hand corner, we use the criteria in the right hand corner to really build out a fleet replacement schedule. So if we were looking at this fleet, and this is our fleet, recommendation in year 1 for replacement is 81 vehicles. So the criteria for those is anything that's 10 years and older or over 100,000 miles. Year 2, that's looking at any vehicles that are 8 years and older or 80,000 miles. With regards to the analysis, we did exclude any of your medium duty vehicles. Those are your cab and chassis with typically larger aftermarket equipment, because generally speaking, those don't make sense financially to replace on a 5-year rotation. So for the sake of the analysis, we did exclude those. And we did identify 9 vehicles in the town's fleet that are underutilized. And the criteria for that is any vehicles that were going under 1,000 miles per year. So again, we're recommending to not include those in the analysis. So we built the analysis using the criteria from your fleet profile and using the replacement schedule. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. And our goals here are really 3 main goals. And those are listed at the bottom right-hand corner. So the goal number 1 is to help the town lower the average age of your fleet. I had shared in the previous slide that you have 89 vehicles today that are over 10 years and older. Again, that's 68% of the fleet. Helping the town reduce overall operating costs. The longer you hold on to vehicles, the larger operating cost you're going to have in those vehicles, and then help the town create a manageable vehicle budget. So those, again, are our 3 main goals of our partnership. So again, those goals, again, the fleet that we analyze is 115 vehicles. As I shared in the previous slide, we excluded the 15 vehicles in your fleet that are your medium duty vehicles. And we're recommending that the town downsize, defleet those 9 underutilized vehicles. So that's where you see your fleet growth go down 1.79%. Currently today, the town is operating at a 14.38-year cycle. And again, we're proposing the town get on a 5-year cycle. So with our recommendations and our plan, we can help the town refresh their fleet and get on a rotation that's a cycle of 5 years. We use the maintenance data from a third-party study, so it's $131.75, and then we use $3.50 again to build the analysis with regards to the cost of fuel. What we looked at in terms of your purchase price, we looked at really the town's average buying patterns pre-pandemic. We understand that during the pandemic, purchase behaviors were a little bit different. So we looked at your buying behavior pre-pandemic, and on average, the town was acquiring about 8 vehicles on average per year. So we looked at really that first line average. If your fleet was 115 vehicles, and you're acquiring 8 vehicles per year, really that purchase price, that average purchase price would be about $302,000. By selling those vehicles and using the equity of $13,000, that would go back to the town. And then using the maintenance costs and the fuel costs kind of built into the analysis using the assumptions from above, that would get your overall fleet budget in of $617,000. That really gives us our benchmark for where the town is operating today. In year 1, we're recommending that the town, again, get rid of those 9 vehicles that are underutilized. So your fleet size would be 106 vehicles, and we're recommending 81 vehicles for replacement in year 1, which would mean that the town would still own 25 vehicles. That lease cost for those 81 vehicles is $664,000, and then we would help the town sell those vehicles. So that equity is factored into this analysis, and that $552,000 would go back to the town. Again, by disposing of your vehicles that are aged in your fleet and replacing those with newer vehicles, your maintenance costs and your fuel costs are going to go down dramatically, as newer vehicles are going to have less maintenance costs. They're going to be more fuel efficient. And that really gives us your overall fleet budget in year 1 of $309,000. You carry this analysis, through, and then we'll start replacing some of the lease vehicles. So you'll see some of the equity from the lease, again, going back to the town. Overall, the 10-year savings for the town, once we get on full rotation, is $76,000 over the 10-year holding period. The next slide really kind of just shows how we make the recommendations and what goes into this analysis. So with Enterprise managing over 2 million vehicles today, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of tools, we have a lot of technology to help identify and make recommendations for, again, the lowest cost of ownership. This is a lot of value that we provide our clients. So this is just an example of comparing 4 different 3/4-ton trucks that are all the same cab configuration. And you can see that the Silverado is the clear winner with regards to the lowest net payment. And that's what our recommendation would be. It's always the town's decision, but our job is to help our clients provide the data to continue to drive down cost of ownership. So this is kind of some of the value, the additional value we offer our clients. Next slide, please. Thank you. In regards to our open-end leasing model, it's a little bit different than a traditional closed-end lease. So what our open-end leasing model does is it allows our clients to just fund the portion of the vehicle that you need, so the cash can, again, stay within the town. So this example, it's a $42,000 vehicle. Instead of, again, to the right, kind of financing that full amount over the holding period down to 0, we're going to write this lease in this example down to $10,000 principal balance. At the end of the lease term, we would sell that vehicle for $22,500, and then that equity would go back to the town to be rolled into the next vehicle if they choose. That's what most of our clients do, which will help, again, drive down that next vehicle lease portion. This allows a lot of flexibility for our clients. This allows you to keep, cash within the town. Our leasing also has no early term penalties, no over mileage. So again, it provides a lot of flexibility to our clients. And the last slide is just kind of a screenshot of really some of the tools and technology that we have. So we have a really great client dashboard, a website that, again, we capture all of the data in your fleet in one place, so we can, again, continue to make those recommendations that are proactive, and continue to help, the town continue to drive down overall cost of ownership. Thank you so much for your time.
When we had met previously, I had an opportunity with a back and forth Q&A. So I want to start with the board with any questions they may have about this presentation and what your thoughts are on this. So start with Councilman Pilarski.
So did you say we'd save 76,000 over 10 years? Is that what I heard?
Correct. Yes.
So how much is your service to provide this? How much is the cost for your service to provide this plan to us and be part of it? In addition to, what additional costs can we face? It's a lease agreement, so I'm assuming when we turn it back in or try reselling it, we got to upgrade tires and any dings and marks. So is there really a cost savings at the end of the day for $7,600 per year for the next 10 years with leased vehicles?
Yeah, so in regards to the resale, the equity goes back to the town. So we consider that when we're writing the leases. Typically, we're not recommending upgrading tires or anything like that. We'll kind of sell around that. On average, we're selling 10% over Black Book. And Black Book is similar to Blue Book, but for the commercial world. And our leasing, in terms of like our management fee, that's all included in the lease cost. That's already built into this analysis.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just so just to be clear, what you're referring to, Councilman, I think is traditionally like a net lease or a closed-in lease where, they'll walk around, oh, there's a scratch there. That's $200 charge, so on and so forth. That we do not do that. There's no over mileage fees. There's no penalties. Obviously, that affects the value of the vehicle. And that's traditionally, I don't want to say a concern, but a question we get very, very often, right? Is you don't want a big balloon payment at the end, or now it's a bunch of fees and all that savings goes away. Not the case at all.
Correct, because I mean, our vehicles are work vehicles. They're going to be in the parks. They're going to get tools thrown in the back, ladders, stuff like that, dinged up and whatnot. So that's my concern: is will that value still be there at the end, and are we really saving any money, or is it costing us more?
Yeah. All accounted for in there, and outside of the municipal space, our traditional commercial clients are in the commercial space, right? Plumbers, construction companies, air conditioning companies. So very much work vehicles. The kind of traditional non-work vehicle, i.e. sales vehicle, is much more the exception in our world than the norm. So the town's vehicles are right on par with what we're dealing with most of the time.
I gotta ask also another question.
I was just gonna add one more thing. The goal is to help sell these vehicles, in that 5-year cycle. So before they're, 10, 15, 20 years old. So that is the goal of the partnership too. Yep.
Well, the answer, but I gotta ask, do you lease plows and garbage trucks? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Oh, you do? All right. Oh, shit. I thought the answer was no.
I thought there was a no.
I did too when I asked.
We did leave those vehicles out of the analysis, like I mentioned earlier, because sometimes those vehicles, we may look at a different holding period or different rotation. So it's not to say that we won't look at those, when we're fleet planning with our clients, but we just didn't build those into the analysis given the larger expense. They might not make sense.
When I asked that question, you guys talked a little bit about Erie County and your relationship with the county on how you did leasing. You got into equipment besides sedans and pickup trucks. I know Nate's thinking about it. Can you refresh me and then let the board know what you mentioned about the variety of things you lease to the county?
Yeah, absolutely. So the partnership with Erie County started very similar. We're, kind of the traditional vehicles, and as they kind of realized the benefit of the leasing model, and just basically freeing up budget, right? Instead of tying up budget in an appreciating asset, they kind of asked of us, hey, can you do plows? This is a really unique example, but a mower truck, very, very unique aftermarket. We can fund that stuff. No problem. I will never, and I told supervisors, we'll never claim to have the same level of expertise in terms of, aftermarket, but funding it, absolutely. We can do that for towns and municipalities.
Okay. Any other questions you want to run through, or just Councilman Jazinski?
What happens if the vehicle gets totaled or it breaks down and the part isn't available and it has to come from overseas or wherever it may come from, what's the turnaround for like a replacement vehicle?
Essentially, it would be a very similar process to today, right? Nothing really changes from that standpoint. We've got the ability to acquire vehicles couple of ways. The traditional way and the most cost effective way is going directly to the manufacturer, right? And ordering it exactly how you want it built for a uniformity perspective, and not having additional equipment that you don't need and paying for that, and not having the vehicle being under equipped. So that is the traditional best way. I would say an emergency or an exception situation like that, you have a vehicle become totaled or go down. We certainly have relationships and partnerships with local dealerships that will acquire a vehicle off of a dealer lot for you.
So historically, what have you done in that situation?
Yeah, go out of stock, get with a local dealer, partner with them with a vehicle that's sitting on the ground, acquire it that way, and then provide it to the municipality.
What is an average turnaround time?
2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, something.
So when the vehicle is required maintenance, who do you email? I mean, because, the person that's going to be necessary, driving the vehicle may not necessarily, care that it needs to be maintenance. Then they're getting, some type of text. It's time for because I use Fleet Track, so I'm totally familiar with this process. So
You got it.
Yeah. So if the town entered into our maintenance agreement, yes, we would have alerts and reminders and send those to a point person within the town to make sure vehicles are getting service at the right intervals. However, that's not required if the town wanted to continue to operate and maintain vehicles in-house, which I know that's what they're doing today. That's, fine too. And that would just be your responsibility to make sure those vehicles are getting maintained appropriately.
To answer the question, it could be twofold, right? A point person, with the town who's obviously in a supervisory role to say, hey, you need to go do this. And then also there is the option for a mobile app for an alert that would go directly to the driver so we could hit it.
Right. Let's say it needs new tires or something. That has to go for approval too, and that would be more incurred costs, correct? Or wiper blades or anything like that. That's your typical wear items.
Yes, those are, and we can structure the lease a couple of different ways. Obviously, the level of detail here, but we can put together a lease that includes those costs, or you can continue to do what you do.
Or incur them as they come.
Yeah, you got it. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, anyone on that side? So you kind of answered my question, I guess. The dashboard thing, do we have access to that or is it just yours? So like our garage guy that runs our garage, he could have it like on his computer and he could track what you guys track also?
So the town would have to, so the dashboard the town does have access to. Today, there's no data on there. So the town would have to sign up for at least auto integrate, which is like a software platform to input the maintenance records. So that way we have access to them as well and use that platform for it to really free flow into our dashboard. And I can utilize that to make recommendations. Or you can put the maintenance part of the lease program. Again, they mentioned we can do it a couple different ways. And you would then use outside shops for that program.
Right, so if we did our own maintenance, theoretically, they could go in and say, okay, this 2025 GMC, whatever they're called, pickup thing, four-wheel drive, whatever. And today I replaced the wipers and we changed the oil 2 weeks. They could add that and you would see that also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that just to be clear, I know we get this question sometimes. That auto integrate program that Fran is referring to is not an enterprise program. That is like outside shop to use that. That's just a software program.
Okay.
So
And you don't do police cars, is that what you said?
No, we do.
we can do police cars
You can,
again. We
but
just
you
didn't
didn't do it
include them
for our-
here again
okay.
because the upfit becomes very different and complicated. So yes, we can do those as well.
All of the clients that I had shared in the previous slide, they all utilize us for their police sheriff's fleet.
Yeah, and I'm sure the county sheriffs probably would put more mileage on than our police department would.
Correct. So that's why we didn't include them in the analysis because they sometimes will skew some of it because they do go higher mileage than a lot of the lighter duty vehicles. Yes, but we can't help lease those as well. Absolutely.
Good, thanks.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Any other questions? And you have contact information you can share with the entire board. If you want to send me a follow-up email with phone numbers, emails, I'd be happy to forward that on to the council members. If they have any additional questions about this, they can reach out to the both of you directly.
Yes.
All right. Any last comments you wanted to share before we wrap this up?
No, nope. I thank you all for your time this evening.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. The next item on our agenda is discuss resolution scheduled for the town board meeting. So as we do at any other work session, I'm going to pull those up and I'm going to go through item by item. If there's something you want to discuss, please stop me. If I'm moving too quick, we can obviously go back to an item I may have passed already. So when everyone's ready, we'll get started with resolution 2025-94. These items, looking at this here, these items are all on consent agenda with one exception that I have in my packet. So 2025-94 is a notice to bidders for furnishing equipment and operators for air quality monitoring during emergency controlled demolition of fire damaged structures on privately owned properties. Huge mouthful. Any questions on that? Sure.
Doesn't the contractor have to provide that? That's doing the demolition?
This
I
year,
don't know, I'm asking.
yeah, we're doing the notice to bidders here to give potential contractors an ability to bid
Okay,
on the contract.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
I think if I understand your question, the answer would be yes, once we award the bid.
Yeah, I misheard. Oh, you're,
No problem. Resolution 2 is 2025-95. That is for 4868 Transit Road. That's a seeker determination. Any questions? Okay, I'm moving on to site plan review for 4868 Transit. Resolution 4 is for 0 Chrisfield. That's a seeker. That's for Empire One Federal Credit Union. Resolution 5 is the 2025 to 2029 5-year consolidated plan and 2025 Community Development Block Grant Annual Plan. 6 is for 0 Kennedy. It's a site plan. Resolution 7 is for email security and archive software upgrades. 8 is annual desktop support software maintenance renewal. Resolution 9, authorized purchase of softballs for the town of Cheektowaga softball leagues. Councilman Pilarski.
So because this is all new, the new structure and everything, this is something on the radar for youth and rec that needs to be addressed sooner than later. If we wait until the next town board meeting, it is past its 30 days for the bid that was given for it, and then it could be an increase in pricing, is from my understanding. Is that what you got from it also, Vern? Okay, so just double checking on that. So I don't know the process of this and how it's gonna work, because this is now not gonna get addressed until the next meeting. So is it something we can pull from this later on to address it, or is it? I don't know how it's gonna work. Legal, are we allowed to pull items to vote on them, or like, how's this work? I don't understand. Because we're in a work session, and I remember last meeting you said work session, town board meeting, it doesn't matter the title of it.
Want to make this a waiver item, if somebody wants to move it as a waiver item, that's possible.
So we pull it at the end when we get to the bottom of the agenda for the work session then? Is that how we work it?
Technically speaking, it's just being proposed for the next meeting, nobody's considering it tonight for anything.
But it needs to be considered, yeah.
Consider it for tonight, we do that
Okay,
as a suspension, as a waiver, suspension.
okay, thank you.
Or any option outside of that, like a regular order opportunity here at a work session? Mr. Fowler?
Excuse me.
In,
This wasn't on the agenda as a pre-filed for this evening, so the only way to get it heard and voted on tonight is town business is going to be to do it as a suspension item.
good, thank you. Okay, Resolution 10 is a termination of highway labor. Resolution 11, appointment of town attorney and town prosecutor. 12 is appointment of an automotive mechanic crew chief in the highway department. 13, appointment of MEOA. That's the highway department. Appointment of senior clerk is resolution 14 for the building and plumbing department. Resolution 15 is appointment of maintenance worker in the facilities department, buildings and grounds division. 16 is appointment of laborer in the highway department. 17, authorization of student interns in the police department. 18, travel authorization for justice court. 19 is travel authorization for the police department. And 20 is another travel authorization for the police department. And under suspension of rules for the 25th meeting, we have one item so far that's on the agenda, termination of part-time employees. All right. No comments on that. Next order of business on the agenda is suspension of rules.
I'd like to make a motion under the suspension of rules to pull number 9, Lock Sporting Goods Resolution 2025-102 in regards to softball purchases to be voted on tonight.
Second on that?
Councilmember Philipsky.
Sorry, I'm not talking into the mic, sorry.
All in favor of pulling resolution 2025-102 from the town board meeting of February 25th, 2025?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. This is now going to be resolution 2025-116. It has to be renumbered since the program does not allow us to move it to a different meeting. So this is now 2025-116, sponsored by Councilmember Pilarski, seconded by Councilmember Thompson. The Department of Youth and Recreation Services is desirous of purchasing softballs to be used by the town of Cheektowaga softball leagues. Department of Youth and Recreation softball program solicited quotes from sporting goods stores. Bucks Sporting Goods of Amherst submitted the lowest bid for 200 dozen Dudley slow pitch softballs at a cost of $10,838. Supervisor in the Department of Youth and Recreation Services being and hereby are authorized and directed to execute and process any and all paperwork necessary for the purchase of said item.
All right, on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
We have another resolution after the deadline. Is there a motion or a second to submit resolution 2025-115?
What is such resolution? What resolution was that?
5-115. It is on the work session under suspension of rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Supervisor Nowak opposed?
Hold on, I'm trying to, oh, there we go, I see it. All right, so I'm not gonna oppose and fight this thing, but the process of it, I'm just, was it put out there? Was it advertised, stuff like that, or my questions and concerns again? I know we got a couple emails of those that were interested in filling in the vacant seat. Were they interviewed? Maybe not, I don't know, so, but I'm not gonna hold it up, I get it. So I'm not gonna oppose it.
According to our rules, one nay vote does not bring the resolution to the table. There will be no action on the resolution.
I thought we're under the suspension of rules, so that wouldn't be applicable, and I defer to the town attorney.
apologize, but
We're under suspension of rules. So if anything, we should call for a roll call vote.
As I understand it, the only thing that was brought up under suspension of rules was the first resolution number, I think now 116. If both of these have been brought up under suspension of rules, then we'd be fine, but we can't because it was brought up second after the first one, after the first suspension of rules, and then the resolution was presented.
Under suspension of rules.
Only one thing was offered under suspension of rules. Now that
This was
something else
moved
is
to-
offered under
This
suspension
was
of rules.
moved to,
I'm sorry.
this was moved to suspension of rules. And we voted on it to move it to the suspension of rules. So therefore, I call for a roll call vote.
My apologies, council member, but the only thing that was brought up under the suspension of rules was the first resolution, renumbered 116.
As this one was.
This was brought up after that one.
But what would it matter? The order?
Sorry?
I don't think the order matters.
No, the order doesn't matter. What matters is that when suspension of rules was requested to consider a resolution, the only resolution that was asked to be considered was what is now called 116 for softballs.
So we're under suspension of rules, correct?
We are not under suspension of rules for this one because there was one no vote.
Okay, so I make a motion to vote to bring this up on suspension of rules. I'd like a roll call vote.
Okay. He asked for a roll call vote. It wasn't a roll call vote before, so could we please do a roll call vote, Madam Clerk, on suspension of rules for 115?
Thought if there's one nay vote on suspension of rules that they're not brought up according to our board rules.
I understand
then
that.
that
It's
would
not
be
being
both.
voted on, but the suspension portion is, and he asked for a roll call on the suspension.
A roll call on the suspension. So this is a roll call vote on the suspension of rules. Councilmember Bukowski? Councilmember Filipski?
Yes.
Councilmember Jazinski?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski?
So are we voting on
Not voting on the resolution.
not
we're
on the
voting
resolution, just to address the suspension of rules? Is that correct? I just want to make sure.
Put this on.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Noah?
Oh,
One nay vote. There's no action on the resolution.
I'm clear because
I'm lost.
I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what
mean,
just
we're under
happened.
suspension of rules. We voted to bring this off suspension of rules. We got the majority of the board says it should be on suspension of rules. I mean, how can we bring one resolution onto suspension of rules? It doesn't matter what order it's brought in, it's still suspension of rules.
I don't disagree that it doesn't matter the order, Councilmember. What my issue with this is, as far as procedurally, pardon me, is that the rules were asked to be suspended for consideration of a single resolution, which was identified as the softball resolution, which was then given a number. I don't care if it's a number before or after. The actual numbering or the ordering isn't what's controlling here. One resolution was asked to come up under suspension of rules, and it was voted, I believe all six of you said yes, and so it was voted on. Subsequent to that, under suspension of rules, it was asked that this resolution be allowed to be acted on, waiving our board rules. And under our board rules, and I think it was 1995 or 1994, a single no vote on the suspension can prevent that from being heard that night by full board vote.
So wouldn't that void both then? Because there's one negative vote on the suspension of rules. So wouldn't that void out both? Because
only-
according to the town bylaws, it takes one nay, so we have one nay.
So if I'm correct, if both were presented at the same time under suspension of rules, then it'd be a whole different topic. They both would have to be approved together or not. In our case, we presented each one separately under suspension of rules, therefore they're being dealt with separately. Am I correct on that?
That's the only procedural part of it that I'm trying to explain is because a single one was identified to be considered under suspension. And it was unanimous, so it was considered. If somebody just would have said, I'd like to suspend the rules for consideration of additional resolutions without identifying what was being considered, that'd be a different story.
But we're under suspension of rules, so that's exactly what it is. We suspended the rules.
You suspended the rules for a single resolution that was identified for suspension. When this second resolution was asked to be considered under suspension, it was also identified.
Right, and accordingly to the town bylaws, all it takes is one nay vote for the suspension of rules as a whole.
I don't disagree.
So then there's, that softball thing doesn't go under suspension of rules.
That was separate. That was
It was
already
dealt with
acted.
separately.
Right.
I'm just, the bylaw says all it takes is one nay vote, and we got one nay vote on suspension of rules.
The one nay vote was on suspension of rules in regards to this particular resolution. Now, if there was a motion to carry on all agenda items under suspension of rules, then they would all be grouped in under that category, but they weren't. And then we acted upon the first one separately. Then we presented the second one to be voted on, and that's when it was turned down by one single vote.
Separate actions.
Correct.
Yes,
way I'm
but we're under
understanding it, at
suspension of
least,
rules,
right?
though. The
Yeah.
suspension of rules is suspension of rules under one meeting per the town bylaws. The clerk never asked for a motion.
I did ask for a motion, council member.
You should suspend the meeting and look at that.
Right, with that said, I'm gonna offer a motion to enter executive session to discuss a legal update with our town attorney and TCEA negotiation update. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're in executive session with no action to follow.